Yeah, so the way we do it is we do I don't know if you've seen it, but we do an audio version podcast, but then we also have a bonus YouTube that is video plus audio. And the way we do it is we have the green room essentially here on the video version of it. So we sort of get people and I, feel for how things are going in the back end. And then we afterwards we'll do the audio portion of it essentially, which will be with video, and then we'll wrap that up, and then we'll have a bonus episode or issue section that's basically we're going to ask you to either provide some like gem of knowledge, one thing that's really good for the audience, or a challenge that you want to throw out to them and say, like, here's something that I challenge you to do this week, and it's to push them to be as our title is, building better developers, also entrepreneurs. The audio version itself, portion of itself, I'll kick it off. I'll introduce myself. Michael will introduce himself. I'll give it to you to introduce yourself, and then we will just start talking and get going. It'll run about an hour, roughly. We don't do a break in between. We will do like a clean end. It does end up going in two parts, very similar, I think you do, where you'll split stuff up. We do essentially the same thing. So this will be two that are, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes a pop. The audience is developers, entrepreneurs. In particular, although your primary business and everything is awesome, and I'm sure we can talk about that. One of the things I think will be really interesting, we'll be getting into your application, internal operating system that you built. I guess it's now been a couple of months. When you and I talked last, you were just about to release it. We were talking about how you'd sort of spent this period of really understanding your business before you dove into it. I think this is really good for our audience to learn is don't just jump into code, don't just jump into tools. There is a lot more to what you're building than that. And I think we'll be great. You and I have had multiple conversations that went on and on, so I don't think we're having any problem, filling time. Questions, comments?
No, I'm ready to go. Yeah.
All right.
It's a little early for me though. This is but it's early as I get.
Well, I'm sorry because I'm shifted, so it's 3 PM where I'm at. So it's one of these that's like trying to balance everything out.
I picked up like the latest one. 8 o'clock. Okay. We'll do it.
Yeah, 8 o'clock for me too.
Yeah.
8 a.m.
Yeah, we got the coffee. We're good to go.
Yep.
There you go. I'll let you guys caffeinate up while I get going on that. 3,
Awesome.
2, 1. Well, hello and welcome back. We are the Developreneur Podcast. We're building better developers. I am Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Developreneur, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help businesses figure out what they want to do before they do it. If you're trying to make a technology move, then we're going to help you make sure that you move in the right direction, that you don't put the cart in front of the horse. Good thing and bad thing. This is one of those that if you're watching, you may have picked it up as we were recording. Bad thing is technology sometimes is overly simple. Things like configuring your microphone so that it connects properly to your laptop instead of using one of the other 6 microphones now that are sitting in in your room, technology-wise, can sometimes cause a few issues. So that being said, I guess I'm slowly learning my technology skills. Good thing, though, is that into this season of like just building and pushing forward, just as we've been talking about in episodes here in the season about getting unstuck and forward momentum and all of those good things that are great for the start of the year, really starting to feel the fruits of the labor of spending that time, digging in, putting in the work, getting all the connections out, doing the networking, doing all the things is starting to pay off. And that is awesome. Much like I'm hoping it will pay off just as much for you to listen to Michael as he introduces himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Meloche. I'm one of the co-founders of Developreneur, Building Better Developers. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we create reliable, tailored software that helps you work smarter, scale faster, and stay in control. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, I've had a little bit of free time. I've been able to kind of step away from working in the business and working on the business to kind of get back to prototyping and playing around with some new tools and that. which was great. I've been kind of building my own personal AI project, homegrown local AI. Downside, I'm starting to find out the limitations and why RAM prices are so bloody high, and I may have to upgrade my machine. So it's like, okay, this pet project is going to start becoming one of those costly things like my video game habit.
Yes, that is. I guess that's where we're going to see next. Is now that everybody's sort of hooked on AI, now you're going to see the charges a little bit different, and people are going to care a little bit more about what a token costs. Today, we have a great guest. Matt and I have had a couple of conversations in the past. We'll have links in the show note to his podcast and some of those. And and it's not just me. Yes, I'm awesome, but he's had a lot of awesome guests. Does a great job out there. And before I pump him up anymore, I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself.
Yes, I'm Matt Levenhagen. I'm the founder, CEO, web designer, developer of Unified Web Design. We've been an agency we've been around for about 8 years, and we serve a wide range of clients, from e-commerce stores to services to we build memberships. We build a lot of stuff. We build a lot of stuff on WordPress. Just because I've been working with WordPress for like 90 years and it just gravitates to me. But we also work in like Shopify and other e-commerce solutions, and we've built things in React and built apps and all that stuff too. So we're pretty well rounded. And yeah, that's kind of my gig. I build stuff and help clients do better.
And that is, gosh, that's like the key to everything, I guess, is if you're building stuff and your clients are doing better, then you are successful. They're successful, so you're successful. Now you you have a builders podcast as well. So it's very much, I think building is in your genes. It's one of your, like that's where you hang your shingle, is basically on building, which based on your background is a perfect suit. It's like we're building websites and building presence and visibility. Now, one of the things that I found really fascinating in prior conversations, and that you've alluded to and you've had some posts about, is building stuff for yourself, scratching your own itch in a sense, and building some of your internal systems. And I'd love to dive in that a little bit. And I'd like to start with the initial itch. Is like, what was that first thing? And especially because we have so many people that do this, what was that first thing that you're like, okay, this is itching enough. I need to scratch it. I need to build something to address it.
Yeah, so I've always been fascinated with chatbots. I guess that's a good thing these days. Even before ChatGPT and all that stuff, I was always playing with chatbots and figuring out how to have conversations and make it useful, right? And I'd actually been thinking about, because like we've been doing general web development and building websites, features, we're really focused on custom stuff for a long time. And I knew with AI, the advent of AI, I needed to do something in AI. So that was the first catalyst. Is I'm like, well, I don't want to be left behind. So I better learn this stuff. Well, how am I going to learn this stuff? And one of the things is kind of building in public, just telling people what I'm doing and building stuff. But how am I going to do that? And I actually, my first idea was to build. I picked up a domain called unifiedlabs.ai, which is out there, but it's just basically a splash page for what we're doing. And the idea was I was going to build a chatbot there and do some cool stuff with it. Have people be able to interact with it or whatever. And then I would obviously, then the useful part would actually be a chatbot for my business. I could ask questions about what we do, and then I could have that on my other sites. And so that was where it started. And then one day I'm like thinking, I said, well, I don't know where the spark was, but there was an idea. I'm like, maybe I should just build something first locally, something for myself. And make it useful, because there's things in my own business that I need to solve, or that could be more efficient, or I could automate. And how can I leverage AI actually in my business first, learn how to build it for myself first, and then once I figure that all out, then maybe I could start building it for my own websites again. So that plan is still in place. That's phase 10 or something. I'm on phase 7 or 8, I think. But then do that, and then I'm going to start to build stuff for other people. I actually shortcutted that a little bit. I'm building a chatbot for a client the next month or two for a members area. So I'm building it for somebody else first, but that's kind of how it started. And I decided, like, let's figure out how to do this locally. And I was always kind of fascinated with like memory and how to. One of the ways, like when I was thinking about building it for my websites, I'm like, well, what do I feed it? Like, how does it like when people are asking about my business, how do I give them the information they need or don't need? How do I guide them? And how does, memory was a big part of this. And I've learned a lot about how to kind of structure that, architect that. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started.
Now, getting into it, and this is because it's a curiosity, because I've sort of gone down that road, and I've talked to a few others that have as well. I'm wondering if this hits you, is that there was a point where you started having an aha and an aha and an aha moment, so that it was almost like it's almost like opening Pandora's box, where you started to realize, okay, I'm doing this and I've scratched this little itch. And then you realize you had a bunch of other itches you could scratch.
Yeah, it started. I guess I first started to think about how I could I think the first thing I wanted to do was basically build a local kind of database of all my business information, but also stuff about me, right? So I kind of had this first vision of just being able to chat with a chatbot that, unfortunately, like if you use like apps and things like that, there's things you don't want to talk to that chatbot about. Right? You don't want to be out there. You don't know what's the security end of it and all that. But also there's not this like persistent memory and stuff. Like they kind of are figuring that stuff out to a degree, but it's not great. And so I wanted to build a system that really knew my business and that I could talk to a chatbot and be able to, it understands like my business. So when I'm talking about a problem, it'll be like, oh, Matt, you fixed, something similar to that back in such and such a year. That's how I'm envisioning it, right? Like it just has this intuitive things, or, you did this for Joe Taylor over here and maybe you could do that. Or, and I've had this happen now. It's Matt, I know how you do these things. I know you're a systems guy, and this is what blah blah blah. So it gets to know you, right? And so that's kind of was my first vision, is just to have a chatbot that just knew me intimately enough that it could help me, just tell me better. And so from there, that kind of idea, okay, so let's build that. And I built that, right? I started kind of installing what I need to install and figuring out what to use for a database, what to use for, how it's going to build it, kind of basically build it vanilla. I didn't use anything fancy. I decided not to go, locally. I just, keep it nice and lightweight, use Node.js. But then, it's like, well, what else can it help me with my business? And I'm like, well, of course. Well, first it was like, well, first of all, APIs. What can I pull down like that's out there, right? That I'm using. And then I started to think about centralization and kind of creating a command center for myself. Because one of the things that I do running an agency every day, besides, I have a team and I have my stuff I'm doing, and I have email, and I have ClickUp that I use for project management. I have all these systems and calendars and like what's on my calendar today. I have this kind of vision of having that all centrally. So that was not really the AI piece. It's like connecting, just pulling that data down. HubSpot, like all of my contacts. But if I do that, I pull all that in, then I can have AI work on it and help me with that. So that was kind of the next thing, and that kind of just snowballs. And then first it was like, let me choose one or two problems, have it solve those problems for me, and maybe some of that's still manual. Like the ClickUp thing was still kind of in the beginning phases, it was pretty manual. I was entering stuff, but over time I started just connecting APIs and filtering stuff and getting down to the nitty gritty, and then push a button. Now AI can help me. So just kind of, yeah, it's like one idea sparks another, and you got more ideas, and it can help me. So it's helping me with multiple things at this stage, and it keeps going.
It's amazing, especially once you start doing the integrating and using APIs and things like that. It becomes, at least for me, I've found that it comes with these things where you're like, okay, now where do I really want to work? So, and with paid solutions and stuff like that, sometimes you look at it, you go, wait a minute, I don't necessarily need that anymore, or I want to push my information up there so I can more better leverage that. And one of the things I ran into as I was did something similar is I just extracted all my stuff out of LinkedIn, and I've got like, I don't know, 10,000, links of people in their contacts. I said, all right, give me people that I need to talk to. Like, give me, people that it should be on my contact list. I don't want all the people that just want me to sign up for a newsletter or something like that. But who are these for, people for the podcast, or for business prospects, or, lead prospecting, all that kind of stuff. Because it's literally the kind of stuff that, if I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. But without AI, I would never do it. It's like, I don't have the time. I can't pay somebody to go through that stuff. And I don't know. And it's honestly, I find it's one of those things that if AI gives you the 80-20, rule, and it gets you 80%, 90% there, sometimes it's good enough. And so how are you deciding, because we can do all this, and it now becomes almost, I don't know, I'll say, for lack of a better term, it's almost free to integrate or to not integrate. It's like, I can put it here, I can keep it locally, or I can utilize, ClickUp or something like that. How'd you go about deciding like when you wanted to connect in, and when you're just like, you know what, I'm going to pull this in, or I'm going to track it differently. I'm going to change how I do my business.
Well, so one of the things that drives me crazy, like ClickUp's awesome. But there's a lot. There's a lot of systems like Asana, other systems like that. There's so much. And so even when you like create dashboards in there and you can filter things and all that, you're still going through this interface that does a million things. And so one of the things I thought it could solve is simplifying what data I actually extract. And the same with HubSpot. I don't need to see everything. Like, I just need certain fields or certain pieces of data for different purposes. So with ClickUp, it was actually interesting because at first I wasn't sure how exactly it could help me, but beyond, okay, just show me stuff that's assigned to me, right? And show me and then have AI figure out what's important, what I should be looking at. And at first it was pretty rudimentary, and it was still a lot of manual stuff. And I would actually still have to click. I would have it linked to the task, and I would go to the task and manage it over there. Actually, at first, I and maybe we even talked about this the first time we talked on my podcast. ClickUp has its own brain, its own AI. And so I would have it generate something locally, and then I would feed that to the brain to get me organized over there, right? It was like this, like it would find stuff or whatever. It was just like this kind of two-step process. It was semi-manual. I'm entering things and like what I'm doing today and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But then over time, I'm like, I don't even use the brain anymore. Now it just pulls everything, filters it based on the criteria I've given it, like, and it organizes it based on importance. And also I've built in tools to actually change things. So little, there's AI and then there's automation. There's things like I can push a button now and move everything to today's date, right? In one fell swoop with one click. And instead of going to each task, but I can do that all in my command center. But then it was the same thing with email, the same kind of thought process. What do I need to pull? What's important? And then the calendar and all that. And then it was pull just what I need and then have AI analyze all of that for me on with the push of a button. And so it creates my daily plan. So I try to do this in the morning. So the idea is morning, I can do it throughout the day though, because it kind of gets context throughout the day. And it takes all of that, just the pieces I need, and then says, "Here's your plan." And and that took some iterations, because at first the plan was like insane, but I'm like, okay, limit it here. I only need the 3 top priorities, things like that. But yeah, that's kind of, for me, it was about the filtering. It's just getting to the data that just I need, because there's so much out there. And it's the same with like HubSpot. Like I decided, well, I could have kind of a local CRM that the AI could interact with. And that was an interesting one, because I'm like, well, there's sometimes I only use HubSpot as basically a CRM, a basic CRM. I don't do anything fancy with it. I'm not, hardcore with HubSpot, but at the same time, that's where all my contacts are. And I sort of have it, it's hard to maintain. There's not everything goes in there and everything else. But what if I could bring that locally? I could also add local contacts if I want to. So it, kind of mixes the two together if I want. But I also have local data that I can create that's not in HubSpot, but it's connected to that ID, and it understands how to connect it all locally. And then, when I'm talking to the chatbot, it can pull in that data, understand who that person is. Maybe I have some other information that I want to have. So that's another thing. So it just pulls in what I need. But then I was able, so once I have all that, now it's like every time, so I'm deciding like, what is the next use case? And for me, that besides being my daily kind of planner, that's the command center, I also had another piece. I'm like, well, I need to do some outreach. And how can it help me and with that and with HubSpot? And so that's a whole nother thing we can talk about. But that's kind of it. I mean, it's like, it's also figuring out how to, build local data. And it's not only the contacts, but there's journals I can put in there and other data I can feed it locally in a structured way that it can use to help me with everything. So did that answer your question?
Yes.
I went on a tirade there.
Oh, no, it was great. So I want to wind it back a little bit, because I really love what I'm hearing and how you've kind of built this system. But I want to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit for our listeners, because I'm kind of in this. I'm a little bit behind Rob on some of the things he's been doing, because I'm more of a test focused guy. So I'm looking at models and things differently. But for how you're looking at AI, and especially like trying to protect your data, you mentioned, you don't want to put so much data out in the wild, you want to keep it privately. Can you kind of walk through your thought process on how you went about figuring out, okay, I need to set up a local AI, or how do I set up a local AI to protect my data here, to set up the chatbots, well, still using that AI brain? You mentioned the ClickUp or ClickIt there. So how do you leverage between those and protect your data?
So basically everything is in a private, obviously locally it's private, but it's very important as you're building things to make sure none of that data is leaked in any way. So there's things in place in the code to only share certain types of data and only connect certain things. So it's like basically I'm not going to push stuff to HubSpot or ClickUp or anything that, and so that's just architected into it. There's I have a local database that that saves things, and it's also like there's layers of like code. There's instructions like what to share, what not to share, and how to build things. There is even my backup systems are encrypted, so like all my the database itself is saved in a way that it would be impossible for somebody to, you want to back up your data. Because especially as you're building stuff, there's a certain point where you reach and it's like, okay, what if I lose everything today? But even that, I thought about, the privacy first and making sure that it was secured and encrypted and saved and then saved somewhere. I have it on a local drive that's separate from everything on my computer. So I have it kind of walled off on my computer as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of, it's just how, like, every time you do something, like how you're going to keep the data locally, you're using the AI in a way where it understands. The AI itself isn't necessarily also, I'm not allowing the AI to just, like, everyone talks about agents today and AI is just doing everything for us. That is not happening in my system. like I have conversations. It helps me do things and work with AI or APIs and things like that. But I don't have it. In my scenario at this point anyway, I don't have it just like autonomously doing stuff and working with outside systems. Like even like, like I'm doing the outreach thing and I'm having it. It's multi layers to that. I have like an audit system first that I'm going through all the HubSpot contacts and I'm adding it, doing things to it, and then it's basically prioritizing those for me and finding. And then I have a way for it to generate the emails. But I'm having to create the draft, right? I'm not having it send the emails. So it's things like that. We're not at a place where we trust the AI so much that it can just do everything. So there are definitely guardrails and different things that I've put in place that where it can help me on some level, but there's a certain point where there's a manual aspect to it.
No, I agree. Yeah, you don't want to be that company. I heard about this story just the other day where a guy ran an agent and deleted his production database.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah, it solved some other problem, probably.
Yeah, it took the company out. But those are the things we have to be careful of. But so still kind of getting back to your thought process on how you got started with this. Rob has shared some things like, can I run AI to figure out, getting started, what kind of AI agents you can start with. You've mentioned you have built this database. How did you kind of research that to figure out what worked best for you to identify what would work with my systems? What do I need to build? Because I get asked these questions all the time, and like, can I run AI is a great starting place, and there's these free private models. But even then, like you mentioned, you don't want to keep these on a private system. So I've actually built something similar. I actually have a black box where I downloaded all the models to this box, and I put this box off the network, and I'm running everything off network to test things and run things like that for security. And then I'm slowly putting them back on and monitoring traffic to make sure I have all those guardrails in place. But how do you identify what kind of the starting point? Because I'm basically right now going through all AI agents to figure out what I can figure out what will run. But how did you approach this? What direction did you go to kind of build your system?
So I started with, my first thought process was the data. Like, what am I, how am I going to, I was always fascinated by, I was thinking long term, right? Like, if I'm going to put my data somewhere, I wanted the flexibility to be able to move that data eventually, maybe into new systems, new databases, and export, import. So I wanted to go with a database. That was the first thing I kind of researched the different types of databases out there, and with AI, like, what are people using? With AI for databases. And it wasn't anything like right now I'm just using SQLite databases, right? I'm just really simple, but the idea there was just, keeping it lightweight but also, like, at some point, if I need to move that data into something else, like what's it gonna take? And and I solved that problem, right? Like, it's this data I'm creating is exportable, importable into other systems if I need to at some point. So that was it. there, and then how am I working with that data? How am I connecting a chatbot? What chatbot am I going to use? And that's the kind of the next thing there is like what's interacting with that data, and how do I instantiate a chat GPT or Claude or Grok. You want to have some fun. I do have Grok for those fun conversations. But it's always like, and then like, how fancy do I need to get? Do I want to, use React and, for the code itself and how it's going to work with APIs. And so that I just kept it vanilla. Like I said, it's just basically JavaScript, but also like in all of this, I'm not building it alone either. Right. So it's a lot easier to do things vanilla when you have the AI actually building it for you. So throughout all this, where I started was, knowing what questions to ask, what was important to me. And the data piece was important, just like the security piece is important. And getting input from, I use Claude Code mainly to build stuff. Getting input from Claude and how to best architect something, and then having, being a web developer, obviously I have, I'm the one QAing and making sure it's actually building what it says it's, or what it should build. And so kind of working with it to figure out how to best build the app. And that's why I even decided not to use like React or something, because that's my first instinct because I'm a web developer. No, let's just build it this way. Let's use, Node.js, Express, TypeScript, SQL-like databases, Node.js. And that was it. And then I just started building it. And as problems came up, maybe we introduced something else or changed something along the way. But it's really just sitting down and like just mapping out in your head like what's important to you, and what's the first thing you want to build, and how, what's the best way to build it. And using AI systems, AI is powerful. I mean, Claude can help you build a lot of stuff. So you don't even need to, you can learn as you go as well, by getting help from Claude or from whatever your favorite chatbot is. But for coding and web development, I pretty much almost exclusively use Claude, although I use Cursor and other models and things sometimes ChatGPT. But that's it. And then it's like any large web development project, you're solving problems as you go. And it's like the memory was the biggest, the biggest thing, because like the reason, what I really wanted was, the other important thing for me was that persistent memory and the ability for it to see into like what my actual details about my business I wouldn't want out there and publicly, or even on ChatGPT's app, right? Like stuff about my business and how it can access that safely. And that was kind of, and then how to look at it architecturally, like there's certain, every time I start a chat with my local chatbot, it's going to load certain things. It's going to have, first of all, rules. This is who I am. It's going to understand who it is and how I want it to interact with me. And then there's kind of a layer of like that always loads like about me, like certain key data it should always know. And then it's like, and then I have actually a kind of, it understands history and time in a way where there's a layer that says, like knows what I've been doing the last 3 days or 7 days. And I have to kind of, I got another aspect of it. I have kind of multiple chatbots I use. One is business, one is personal, and then like specialized. And then they interact with each other and share data between them. So, because one of my visions was that, okay, I want the business side to know that Matt's doing this thing over here personally, or going through this personal thing, and maybe that'll influence something over here. That's how I was thinking about it. And then I have the deep archive of really a lot of data and stuff that I'm feeding it over time, and where it's more on demand. But anyway, I think how I built it, I kind of went on again another tangent there, but how I built it was just starting with the problem and starting with the first thing I wanted to build, and then figuring out how, what's the best database, and using the tools, doing the research along the way, and kind of figuring out as I go. When you're building it for yourself, it's not like you're building it for a client. Well, hopefully sometimes you're learning as you go, as you're building stuff for clients, but as you're building it for yourself, you can make mistakes, or you can figure things out, or you can have the system itself analyze itself. So I have a system in place where every month it creates, I have Claude actually look at well, especially in the beginning, I was looking at this, because memory was a huge part of this. How can it, because I have it saving pieces of the AI itself can identify something in a conversation that's important and create a note. And so all the AI systems see that note, and that's kind of the history of what's going on with Matt. But all of that is, it's just all this, it's figuring out those pieces and how it's going to interact and build stuff. And it's fun. I lost my train of thought, so I'm just going to say it's fun.
And that is where we're about to pause. Not only about to, yes, we're actually going to pause right there, but don't worry. Matt is ready to go. He is ready and raring for part 2. We're going to pick up right where we left off, and it is going to continue to be a really good conversation. As I told him afterwards in the post discussion, one of the things I think he did a great job of is getting sort of technical, but also not too technical, and then also having that entrepreneurial, business-driven side. Very much what we always talk about is making sure that you're not just playing with the tools to play with the tools, you're actually solving a problem. There's a why to that. Because yes, you can learn the tools by just playing with the tools, but if you're solving a problem, then it's going to help you figure out better how to apply that tool instead of just saying, I know the tool. And I will warn you that as we move into this new world of AI and everything else, knowing the tool is not going to help you much at all. That's yes, I know people are still asking to say, do you know how to use Claude, or do you know how to use ChatGPT, or do you know how to use Grok, or whatever it is? Fairly soon, they're going to figure out that means absolutely nothing. That's like asking if you can breathe or something like that. So that being said, we're going to wrap this one up. We will be back. As always, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week. And we will talk to you next time.